The honourable member for, Pitt Meadows, Maple Ridge.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I asked a question last Friday that echoed the sentiment of Canadians from coast to coast. And it's simply, when will we have a carbon tax election? It's not a platitude or a quip or a slogan that should be just brushed away, which the Liberals are doing. The carbon tax represents a societal and political flashpoint. And they really should be aware of this just looking at the polls, for example. But the Liberals, they've been married to it. It's full speed ahead, no matter their torpedoes. There's a more vulgar way of saying that, Madam Speaker, but I won't say that here. Yesterday, today, I don't know for how many more days, we've been discussing a motion of privilege about producing documentation. Ordered the Speaker, the House, ordered the Liberal government to produce documentation that a committee requested, which is within their right. And what did they get? They just received, they received documentation, but it was blanked out and the information wasn't there. Hundreds of millions of dollars inappropriately going to members of the board who were Liberal appointees and obvious conflict of interest. And one in particular stands out in my mind, and that is the board member who runs Cycle Capital, received $250 million. $250 million. And who was a lobbyist for Cycle Capital that actually got elected? Well, none other than the Minister of the Environment and Climate Change. I said Environment and Climate Change. 25 times he lobbied the Liberal government and the Prime Minister just the year before he got elected in 2019. Madam Speaker, we don't know the facts. Why are the Liberals hiding the facts, forcing us to debate hour after hour in the House when we should be doing other business? I'm thinking out loud, but is this whole obsession with the carbon tax really about getting Liberal insiders rich? You have to ask yourself that question. And I think Sustainable Development Technology Canada is an example that sounds the alarm. Madam Speaker, I have taught high school Canadian history in school, and I'm not aware of a more scandal-plagued government in Canadian history. Scandal after scandal, and it begins with the Prime Minister. While so many Liberals, insiders, are getting rich on taxpayer money, the people are getting poorer and poorer. In my riding and throughout the country, the response at the doors is the same. Canadians are having a hard time. And the carbon tax is adding to that pressure, making gas more expensive, groceries, housing, the cost of living.
Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And my Conservative member opposite said one thing that I will totally agree with him on, and he said, we don't know the facts. And I don't think I've never heard anything more truer coming from that side of the aisle. Because as Canadians face ever-increasing droughts, wildfires, extreme weather events, the need to continue taking action on climate change has never been greater. Climate impacts have already reduced Canada's GDP by $25 billion. By 2055, without significant emission reductions, these costs are projected to soar between $80 billion and $103 billion. Who knows what kind of future we are leaving to our children? Addressing climate change now is essential, not just for our environment, but for our economy and for our future. This summer, Canadians, including the member opposite, watched in horror as many parts of Canada were ravaged by wildfires. And Canadians are looking to government to put forward concrete action to combat the effects of climate change. And that exactly is what pollution pricing does. As the member opposite knows, there is no federal price on pollution in the province of British Columbia. But the Conservative Party is obviously not interested in what the government has to say. Maybe they will listen when the Bank of Canada says that a price on pollution contributes less than 1% yearly to inflation rates. The reality is that the Conservative Party has no plan when it comes to fighting climate change. With the new revelations that the senior Conservative advisors are confirming that they would let the industrial polluters off the hook, combined with the report that the leader of the opposition met with dozens of oil and gas CEOs at a private fundraiser, their motivations are very clear. This was never about helping Canadians. It was always about the efforts to serve his ultra-rich, big polluter friends, especially those in the oil and gas industry. The Conservative position on carbon pricing is clearly designed to create political cover for them trying to help their leaders' friends in big oil and gas and other heavy industries pollute for free while ending the Canada carbon rebate and leaving Canadians on the hook to pay for the costs of that pollution. We know the cost of doing nothing far outweighs the cost of reducing acting. Our government is stepping up to protect the environment so that future generations will live in an environment that's livable, and it's a shame that other parties won't do the same. Thank you.
The honourable member for Pitt Meadows, Maple Ridge.
Madam Speaker, the member talked about fires. We've heard from the situation, the fire in Jasper, that there was a controlled burn that was recommended, and there was political pushback within the Liberals saying that, maybe we don't want to do this. Why? Because it goes against a narrative of climate change, when in fact, wildfires cause about 1/3 of the pollution of carbon emissions in the world. So, Madam Speaker, I'll just say this right here in closing, is that when you tax the trucker who brings in the food, and you tax the farmer, hundreds of thousands who grow the food, and tax the grocer who sells the food, it's the consumer that pays for it, and the Liberals are totally out of touch.
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, the Conservative Party are always looking for scapegoats to blame on wildfires or anything else. They're looking at bureaucrats. Shame on them. They know that the climate crisis is real. Scientists for 20 years have said that this is the truth. And most Canadians understand this. And most Canadians are asking us to do more. Because if we don't invest in climate solutions, including carbon pricing now, we will all face higher costs in the futures. From fires that we've seen in Jasper, from hurricanes that we've seen in my riding Cape Breton, we've seen snowfalls, we've seen tremendous weather events, and the Conservatives always want to point the finger at something besides what they've known for 20 years, is that the climate crisis is real and we have to act. And Madam Speaker, I really hope that at some point the Conservatives will stop putting political points above their future generations of Canadians.